God never said that you wouldn't suffer, but he did promise these things in the midst of it. The first promise of God in our suffering is that he's going to be with us through our trials and our tribulations. Some of us are misinformed, thinking that God leaves us whenever we're dealing with trials and tribulations and then comes back afterwards when they're finished. But that's not what God ever says in his word. Rather, he tells us that he'll never leave or forsake us. And we see regularly in the scriptures that in people's trials and tribulations, God is right there with them, supporting them and helping them and building up and edifying them in the midst of their suffering. Don't ever think that God's going to abandon you in your suffering, and actually realize that he promises you the opposite. The second promise that God gives us within our suffering is that our suffering is not in vain. God never wastes pain, and he uses our trials and our tribulations and our suffering to build us up and edify us in our faith and to conform us to the image of his son. He uses our trials and tribulations and suffering to draw us near to him and build us up and edify us in our relationship with him. Now, don't get this mixed. I'm not saying that God is purposely putting you through bad things just to draw you nearer to him. Rather, suffering is something that he says that we will go through. He's making sure that the suffering that we go through is not in vain. So God is making sure to bring good from an evil that is going to be in this world during this current time. So if you're currently going through great suffering or a trial or a tribulation, I want you to keep these promises of God in mind. And I hope that these promises encourage you and you keep them close to your heart during these darker parts of your life. I hope that the Spirit of God speaks to those who he needs to speak to. And if you want more content like this, just go ahead and drop a sub or a follow. And if you want to hear more teachings from me that are outside of short form content, I want to recommend you join my Bible classes every single Thursday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Google Meets.